जय श्री राधे। सब वैष्णवों को सादर सप्रेम सदैन्य जय श्री कृष्ण। Varta 173. The story of Madhuri Das, the gardener from Jetipura. It's day 188 of our readings. Bhav Prakash. This is a devotee of Rajasi disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Kalika, who belongs to the group of Shri Yamnaji's Sakhis. She manifests from a monkey from Gokul and is thus a personification of its divine loving sentiment. He was born into a family of gardeners in Jetipura. His father was a disciple of Sri Gosaiji. He had his son Madhuri Das initiated by Sri Gosaiji. When he was a child, he accompanied his father into the gardens and learned how to look after the flowers. He would gather up flowers and take them to be sold. After some time, his father died, and Madhuri Das became independent. He would go to have the holy site of Sri Govardhanaji every day. He would look very carefully at Sri Govardhanaji's adornment and then gather flowers that matched his necklaces and make garlands from them. These he presented into Sri Govardhanaji's Seva. For Sri Govardhanaji's form, he would give all the fruits and the flowers from the garden to Sri Govardhanaji. He made his living from selling dry wood. He had immense love for Sri Govardhanaji, and the Lord remained very happy with Madhuri Das too. Sometimes he would go to that garden and granted Madhuri Das his holy sight. One day when the Lord came into the garden, Madhuri Das was preparing a garland from him and did not notice that he had arrived. He was completely absorbed in his seva. Sri Govardhanaji caught hold of his arm and said, "Oh Madhuri Das, please make the garland like this." Madhuri Das realized his beloved Lord was by his side, and he made the garland exactly as he said. Sri Govardhanaji was more than pleased with that garland, and he told Madhuri Das to present it to Sri Gosaiji. Having said this, he returned to his temple. Part 1. Madhuri Das the gardener lived in Jetipura. One day Madhuri Das had brought the garland that he had made for the Lord. He placed it in front of Sri Gosaiji. Sri Gosaiji gave it to Krishna Das, the temple manager. He told Krishna Das to give it to the Bhitariyaji and tell him to offer it to Sri Govardhanaji to wear. The Bhitariya did so, but it was not big enough. He told Sri Gosaiji that the garland was very nicely made, but that it did not fit. Sri Gosaiji told him to try again. He did so, and this time the garland was too big. The Bhitariyaji said, "Oh Maharaj, it still does not fit, it's too long." Sri Gosaiji entered the seva. He himself garlanded the Lord, and this time it was the right size exactly. Sri Gosaiji addressed the Lord, "Oh Baba, why did this happen in this way?" Sri Govardhanaji spoke to Sri Gosaiji. "First of all, I cannot live without you. Secondly, please make me a jewelled necklace exactly the same as this flower garland. And thirdly, the priest has bad breath." From that day onwards, the temple servants wore flower scents and ate pan bridas before entering the beloved Lord's seva. When the jewelled necklace was prepared like the flower garland, Srinaji was very, very pleased. To this day, that necklace is known as the Madhuri Das's necklace. The moral of this story is that Vaishnavas must be very careful when serving the Lord. They should not have smelly mouths, they should not wear dirty clothes, they should put on flower essences before going into the seva. They should always serve the Lord with a realization that they are serving the very Lord himself in person. Whatever they have prepared should fit exactly and not be too large or too small. When a Vaishnav leaves the Lord and serves the Lord in this perfectly personal way, the Lord will grant them his direct experience. Thus concludes Varta 173, the story of Madhuri Das, who was most blessed and made flower garlands for the Lord every day. He was a recipient of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and an accomplished Vaishnava. There is no end to his tale. Continuing then on this day 188 with the Varta 174, the story of Dharmadas Brahmin from Ading, to whom Sri Gosaiji gave the gift of sight. Bhav Prakash. This is a devotee of Tamasi disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Nayan Prabha, who manifests from a monkey in Gokul and is thus a personification of its divine loving sentiment. He was born into a Brahmin family in Ading. He had smallpox as a child and became blind. His parents were devastated and worried about him all the time. When he was about 15, his parents died. He began to sit on the road between Mathura and Govardhan and beg for a living. He survived on whatever he got in this way. Part 1. Once Sri Gosaiji was travelling from Gokul to Jetipura. When he saw this blind Brahmin sitting on the road, he felt very compassionate towards him, realising how sad he was to be blind. Sri Gosaiji wished for him to regain his sight, and he did. The Brahmin could suddenly see. He was surprised and wondered what had happened. He felt delighted. Sri Gosaiji's consideration was that Brahmin boy be given the true gift of sight, the holy sight of the divine. Sri Gosaiji called the boy to him. He came over and bowed respectfully at Sri Gosaiji's feet and said, "O Maharaj, what a great grace you have showered upon me, that you have given me the gift of sight." Sri Gosaiji asked him whether he would like to remain by his side. The Brahmin boy replied, "O Maharaj, what else could I ever want?" Sri Gosaiji took Dharmadas with him to Jetipura. It was time for the afternoon of Tap and Seva. Sri Gosaiji bathed immediately and went into the temple. The conch shell was sounded. Sri Gosaiji touched Sri Govardhanaji's cheeks with his hands, and they asked after each other's health and happenings. Sri Naji told Sri Gosaiji that he had done a good thing to give Dharmadas his sight back, and that he should take him as a disciple. When Sri Gosaiji came out of the temple, he granted him initiation with the Lord's name. Dharmadas then realised his true identity, and that a very good thing had happened to him. That day was the 10th day of the bright half of the month of Jesht. Sri Gosaiji then instructed Dharmadas to fast without even drinking water the next day. The reason for this was that Dharmadas had been blind, and therefore he had not been able to maintain a perfectly pure diet. He had to fast strictly for the sake of purity. Dharmadas fasted without water on that day. Then on the 12th day of the month, Sri Gosaiji granted him the Brahmasambandha initiation. Sri Gosaiji then advised him to sit with Vaishnavas and to listen to their discourse. Dharmadas then supplicated Sri Gosaiji, "Please teach me one of your divine treatises." Sri Gosaiji taught him the Varabhashtakam. His intelligence was purified thereby, and everything began to make sense to him. Sri Gosaiji let him serve his feet. He gave this privilege to him alone. This teaches us that the regular reading of the Sri Vallabhashtakam grants heartfelt knowledge of Sri Acharyaji's form, pure intelligence and firm faith. Then the Pushti Marg becomes clear in its entirety. Sri Gosaiji's form is also revealed thereby. When the Lord considers the soul as his own, then he grants to them the divine sentiment of humble servitude, Das Anu Dasatva. Part 1 continued. He also gave Sri Navaneet Priyaji's Mahaprasad regularly to Dharmadas, who left his body some time after. Sri Gosaiji said he served very nicely. Sri Gosaiji's son Sri Balakrishnaji was sitting near to his father. He asked, "Why do you praise him so much? After all, it was you who had graced him to be as he was. You gave him back his eyesight and kept him close to yourself. All of this was your gift to him." So why so much praise? Sri Gosaiji announced, "I had to give to him in this way. When Hayat appeared in the house of Sri Vasudev, he did me a great favour." How? Well, he was the water carrier for Kamsa. He went to Kamsa and told him that it was a daughter, not a son, that had been born to us. For this Kamsa slayed that Kavas. That is why I have shown him great affection. Now he will be reborn as Murari Das, who will come to be one of my very close Vaishnavas. Thus concludes Varta 174, the story of Dharmadas, who was the recipient of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and an accomplished Vaishnava. It would be futile to try to adequately tell his full tale, for it has no end. Jai Shri Radhe, Aaj ke Anand ki Jai ho, Shri Vallabhadisha ki Jai. Jai Shri Radhe.